hear the words American Dream, I kind of hesitate to state what I think it means, because I think it's broader than the American Dream. I think of the American Dream being something that people in America think about without understanding the worldview. I think everyone around the world has a dream to be who they want to be. Not everyone is free to be who they want to be or to make the choices they would like to make. And I think it's a universal dream to have the opportunity to do what you want to do. Lots of women do not have the freedom to be who they want to be, and nor do they have the tools to take care of their children, raise their children the way they want to. And that's one of the reasons the YWCA has been really important. And we reach out in terms of just domestic violence. We have the shelter, which I raised the money for with the help of a lot of other people, actually tripled our capacity from 21 women and children to 60 women and children. And a few years ago, we got another $1 million to add 20 more beds. That's 80 beds. And that shelter it's the only shelter in Hamilton County, and it is full every single night with a waiting list. If that doesn't speak to women in trouble, I don't know what does. And that's just the beginning of what the YWCA does for women. They shelter them in times of crisis. They help them find jobs. They do job training. They do literacy. They teach GED classes. All of those things to help women become self-sufficient. And that's what women, if you talk in terms of the American Dream, that's what it's all about, is helping women reach their potential. I volunteered starting years ago, before I was even married. I grew up with a mother who volunteered and who taught school, and volunteering was sort of part of what you did, whether you were working or whether you weren't or whatever. And I had a full-time, very good job, and a friend of mine called and asked me to volunteer to tutor a young woman in a home for pre-delinquent girls, which was before foster care system back in the early 1960s. But what I learned from her, two things. One thing she said to me was I was the only person in her life who wasn't paid to talk to her. All the other adults in her life were paid. Her teachers, her social workers, the woman who was the house mother in the home, etc. And I was the first person, and that really speaks to volunteerism, because a child in her case would know that I was there because I wanted to be there, not because I was paid to be there. It was a very powerful message to me way back when I was very young, 22 years old, or 23, something like that. And then she also taught me another lesson, and this was probably 1963. I was 22, 23 years old. One afternoon, a gang of boys came into this shelter, and they beat up a little girl right in front of me. And I was very tiny. I wasn't old and motherly at the time. I was very young. And my little girl that I was tutoring said to me, "Don't worry about it. That's her boyfriend. He owns her." And that just set off all kinds of bells and whistles in my mind. And I had no idea where my life was going. I hadn't met my husband. I didn't know anything about where I was headed. And I wasn't thinking about the American Dream. I was just thinking of earning a living and doing the best I could do. And that set off bells and whistles in my head. And I said that day, and I'll never forget it, someday I'm going to do something about this. My advice to young people is to work absolutely as hard as they can to understand not only their studies, but to understand what's going on in the world around them. Take the time to read the newspaper. Take the time. Don't just watch television and get the sound bites. But read the newspaper. Read the in-depth. Read both sides so that you can make a wise decision on where you stand in relation to what's going on in the world. Pay attention to worldwide news. The world is very small. Everything that goes on in the world affects us in America.